This founder has sports agents waking up in cold sweats as she's cutting out the middleman and giving athletes, coaches, and teams the power to connect through technology. Give it up for Ainsley McCallister and Uru Sport. From sports agent to agent of change, this founder is on a mission to empower the athlete to understand their market value through data. Make some noise for Josh, Ebrahim, and ProFitX. Thank you, founders, for those introductions. Let's kick it over to our head referee, Nick.
All right, welcome, founders. Let's get ready to debate. To get started, we're going to flip a coin to determine who will kick off first. So, Ainsley, would you like heads or tails?
Heads.
Heads. It is tails. So, Josh, would you like to receive or would you like to defer?
I'll defer.
Awesome. So, Ainsley, you're going to start it off. You're going to have 45 seconds to respond. And then, Josh, you're going to have 45 seconds to respond on your end. And then you can go back and forth. So, we put 10 minutes on the clock. Best of luck to you, founders. Here's the first question. Are you for or against the need for athletes needing sports agents?
That's a great question. So I'm not against athletes needing sports agents or using sports agents, but I want athletes to have full control of their own career and not need to put it completely in the hands of someone else, especially when that other person is actually working for the team. One thing that a lot of people don't realize is that sports agents across the world and overseas internationally are actually working for the team. So therefore they have an unbiased view of what is actually best for the athlete. What's wrong with this agent model? It's really these agents are gatekeepers to the information and talent. The agents' connections and opportunities that they offer the athlete are really reliant on their own personal network, and they sometimes might withhold extremely valuable information from the athlete. Also, with the agent being the middleman, just this whole recruiting process is so much slower. And lastly, the agents can be really expensive. So while there's tons of great agents out there, the sports recruiting model really just needs to be completely revamped.
Josh, and your counter to that?
Yeah, I'm definitely for sports agents, although I have a different perspective on it. Definitely from the major sports league aspect of it. I think agent experience is invaluable because athletes initially lack that experience when they enter into their playing career. And without the agents, the leverage is tilted in favor of the teams, and usually the teams can control those situations. My job as a sports agent is to ensure the success of the athlete on and off the court, and that's how we create leverage. So the relationships that I cultivate with executives are built through trust and transparency, and that gives me the data ammunition that I need to put the athletes in the best position possible to find the best team fit for his skill set and to maximize his financial value.
Ainsley, anything to counter to that?
Yeah, so we've been talking to tons of athletes across all levels, and one athlete that we talked to, Devereaux Peters, she was a third pick in the WNBA in 2012. So you would think that she would be really represented fully by these agents. This is just a prime example. She ended up having a bad experience with this team, but because the agent knew that they place players there every year, they didn't want to jeopardize their relationship with that team and recruiter. So if they're not necessarily batting for the third pick in the WNBA, who will they bat for?
Anything to counter that, Josh?
Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, I think you have to think about it. You only get paid when the athlete gets paid. So you're not really concerned with what the team aspect of it is, as long as it only fits with the athlete's skill set and that they're going to do everything in their ability to help ensure that player reaches their full potential, and that ensures that both sides come out with a winning outcome.
So I think the fact that they only get paid when the athlete gets paid, and you're looking at it from the perspective of you were a sports agent from the U.S. who got paid based off from the athlete, right? These teams are actually, or the agents overseas the model is completely flip-flopped, and the teams the agents might withhold information about an athlete's deal with this higher salary that would be a much better fit for that athlete on an overall scale, except for the pay. So why there's a lot of incentive for an agent to withhold a lower salary that they would get housing, visas, a lot of non-tangible financial benefits for these agents, but for the athletes, it's extremely valuable.
Cool. That's a good segue to the next question. So, should fans play a larger role deciding what players a team should choose? First one on this question would be Josh.
Yeah, I'm definitely for the fans having the ability to give the teams input on what players they should choose. My first reason is the fans are the biggest stakeholder in the sports ecosystem. They're the motivation behind teams, and the teams are nothing without the fans. And without the fan support, the teams are just not as valuable. If you look at the Chicago Bulls, Jerry Reinsdorf bought the team in 1985 for $16 million, and now they're worth $3.2 billion. The only reason that is the case is because Michael Jordan drove up the value of the team by winning 6 NBA championships. He sold out stadiums, he sold jerseys, and he built a loyal fan base for the Chicago Bulls. And if you don't have MJ, you don't have fans.
Ainsley, your response?
I completely disagree on this because coaches are experts, and that's what they're paid to do. They have the insight on the team dynamics of what's actually causing the success that no fan has. I mean, fans are really easily swayed by the marketing and propaganda, and yeah, so that like really fits into some players who are quiet and humble and really let their game play, but not really out there yelling, will be missed, because so much of a team's success is really not based on the actual talent or stats or this marketing propaganda, but the cohesiveness on a team. And so like really, if you're arguing that fans should have a larger role, then I'd argue that they'd need really insight on what's going on behind the scenes and behind closed doors of this top level sports, which is never going to happen.
Anything to add to that, Josh?
Yeah, my thoughts are this. Number one, you have to the only way to ensure the team's success is if the team knows what they're doing first and foremost, right? And that's never a guarantee. To build a sustainable and winning roster, you have to have transparency at all levels, and and the fans are not lacking education on the sports these days. There are a lot of knowledgeable fans out there that if we provide a platform for them, then they can have input into it, and you don't sell out stadiums, you don't sell jersey sales if you don't have a sustainable winning roster that is set up for long-term success.
Great.
So
and then,
Josh,
we'll segue to the next
I have
question.
a comment. Yeah, sorry.
Okay.
So Josh, I know that you played ice hockey over professionally in South Korea, right? A team would have never known, all those fans would have never been able to vote for you, even though you were a good fit for the program, right? So I think there's a lot that of when you talk about transparency that's just not accessible in the sports world right now. And so I think that's one of the problems across kind of the sports world is this lack of information. But I think coaches and people who are paid to have that information are in the best position to, rather than fans.
Yeah, and listen, teams are always gonna keep their competitive advantage, and that's kind of something that we're trying to do is create more transparency for the fans so that they can have a larger voice into their construction of their team rosters and have a voice, because if the fans aren't happy, then the team is obviously doing something wrong. So that's what I would add on to that as well.
I think fans aren't ever happy if a team is losing, and coaches know what makes a team win. That's what, like, some of the best teams don't have the superstars. It's made of amazing personality and cohesiveness on a team that you fans will not be able to read and place together. So
yeah, but there's only one team that wins a title, so the other teams are always doing something wrong. So I would counter with that.
Well, I think you just made a point exactly for mine. The one team wins, right? And so they need to put together the best roster based on a bunch of transparent information that experts have the best insight on, which is the coaching staff and the experts. So
it's a great debate. That's actually all the time we have, but we are going to put in an overtime question. So if you put some more time on the clock, and the final question would be, has technology made the relationship between teams and players simpler or more complicated?
Is this for, sorry, who is this for?
Ainsley, this is for you first.
I would say overall it's simpler, but like really sports recruiting is still of the Stone Ages, and the technology has left it completely untouched. There's no standards that really streamline information for teams and players across the world. A lot of the tech today like focuses on player improvement or gathering stats, which is actually incredible, but an athlete really improves the most when they're placed in the right fit competitive environment, and that agent completely personality, or that agent model has completely been left untouched and not kept up to really the speed of markets and other technologies.
Josh, and your point?
I think technology has both its pros and cons. I mean, we all have a love-hate relationship with data and technology, but I think when you understand the people that are using the technology, the strengths and the weaknesses and the problems that need to be solved, that's when it can be most successful. I think technology helps reinforce the decision-making process, but it doesn't always answer all of the questions, and it never will, because it's not the only driver in winning championships. The outcome of the game will always be determined by the players, and it's never going to be dictated by technology. But what it can do is create more insights into the best plan of action during the season and during the off season.
Yeah, I really like that point, because I think the insight into the league and actually getting the insight from the actual players is going to be completely a game changer when it comes to changing how the relationship between the teams and players actually communicate. So I think really we do need to empower athletes to make better decisions by being able to connect easily with this global community of athletes who've done and played there.
Great. Anything else to add to that, Josh?
No, I'm good.
Awesome. Well, that was a great debate between the both of you. That wraps up the Sweet 16 for the Sports Tech and Analytics Department. So thank you for that. Everyone tuning in, use the hashtag debate for COVID to decide who you think won that one. So thank you, founders, for a great debate.
And let's introduce our judges. First up, Diana Melencio, VC at Wise Ventures. Next, Kyle Eddins, CEO of E2 Generations. And lastly, Andre Fluellen, founding member of Beyond the Game Network. Let's kick it over to our head referee, Nick.
All right, that wraps up an amazing debate between Josh and Ainsley, and now we're on to the judges for their analysis and picks. So let's start with Deanna. Could you please provide some analysis and your vote for this decision?
Sure. So I thought both made for really great points, and I believe the answers to all questions, particularly the first two, is really somewhere in between. Ultimately, I found Ainsley's points more compelling arguments for each of the questions. In general, I sided with her viewpoint for her focus on sort of like the athlete founder first perspective, as well as the call for greater data and transparency so that the system is equitable to all parties. And I will say that I thought the question regarding, fans versus coaches, which I believe was the second question, is an interesting one, given that the fans are the ultimate stakeholder. And I think that social following and the athlete's ability to engage fans will come more and more into play with regards to teams choosing which athletes. All things equal, the athlete's ability to garner attention, therefore ticket sales, therefore merch, therefore sponsorships, will ultimately be a decision maker, especially as sports and interactivity between fans continue to increase. So that's my 2 cents.
Great. And your vote for this one would be?
Is Ainsley.
Ainsley. Great. So Ainsley has 1 vote. And now we'll move over to Kyle for your analysis and your decision.
Great. Thanks. So Ainsley, I felt like the responses were more concise and focused. I think that is fairly evident also in the product focus and the market that she's trying to go after. I think she has a more narrow problem that she's trying to solve, which seems to be much more focused on the athlete. So I think that going after a more concise market, especially early on, is going to be something that will allow you to move the company forward. But I do warn against scalability of that as far as a two-sided marketplace and being able to take that, cross boundaries, whether it's international. It seems like there's some different challenges or problems that you're trying to solve based off of the way that the agent model is structured. So I did like the agent model or the agent question that you provided. I do think that is an area that is ripe for disruption. I think that there's so much technology that could be leveraged to remove some of those soft skills that come from that. So I'd be curious to see how you can take advantage of that as well, and opening up some of the conversations and boundaries. Josh, I feel like you have a lot of breadth in your experience, which I think would be super beneficial. I think some of it just needs to be honed. I felt like you were coming from a number of different angles with your responses. In particular, the fan engagement one, I felt was a little all over the place. I think that's a tough angle to take to say that the fans are going to be able to drive and dictate how some of the decisions are made on and off the field. I think Ainsley was pretty spot on with her response around what information would be able to get to them. I do think that fan engagement in general is also ripe for disruption. I'm just not sure that it's going to be so much from a decision-making standpoint. But at the end of the day, the fans are the drivers of the revenue, and if you don't have engaged fans, then everything else kind of starts to fall apart from there. So I did like your response, Josh, to the final question. I think it was a little more evident that you had some technical background. And I think if you can merge some of the experience from both perspectives as well as some of the technical breadth, I think you have the opportunity to go after some big problems. But I caution you to maybe narrow some of the focus around what you're trying to solve or the problem that you're trying to solve initially, and not necessarily get over your skis too early on that. So at the end of the day, I chose Ainsley as my victor for the debate, but I think both are coming from very different angles, and I think that was evident in the debate. So that was fun to watch.
Great. So that was 2 out of the votes for Ainsley, although we would still like to get another analysis from our final judge, Andre, who's a former athlete and could provide some great analysis. So could you provide some analysis on what you thought on that and your vote as well?
All right. So here's the thing: when things are close, the way I kind of look at it is like whose answer I hated the most instead of whose answer I liked the most, right? So when it comes to that, so I looked at all three answers, and so I think Josh came with a more real-world experience on terms of being an agent in the first question. So I got to give the first question to Josh. Then I'll skip to the third question. The third question was kind of a draw, but as a former NFL player, like I'm so scared of data for players, okay? Because just think about it like this, like, you know, you see all these censors and talk about, you know, a player has a likelihood of becoming injured because of this data that's out there that's in my shoes or whatever. Like, what if a team decides to cut me because the data is saying that I'm going to be hurt next week, right? Like, I that scares me. But they on that question, they kind of had a draw because they both agreed on that question. So I got to give them a draw. So then we go to the second question, and the second question is, unfortunately, it's where Josh lost me, man. It's unfortunate because, dude, as a former player, and now I'm a VC investor, right? Like, as a former player, if a fan had a choice if I'm going to play or not, like, I'm going to go into the stands and go try to find that fan. Like, you know, like, seriously. Like, I want a fan see, and it's kind of the same thing as, like, you don't want the crowd making the decisions for the team, like for the immediate team. It's kind of like in VC investing too. Like, I get scared, man, when everybody says this is the next hot thing and this is the next good thing and everybody should do this. Like, I kind of get freaked out about that. So Josh, man, you freaked me out by saying that the fans should be the ones making the decisions if I'm going to play or not. Because the fans have no clue, right? The coaches and Ainsley did a better job of saying that the coaches and the experts should make those decisions. So because I hated your answer more than Ainsley's, I'm going with Ainsley. My bad, Josh.
That was a great recap, but so congratulations, Ainsley. You've got a ticket to the Elite Eight. Congratulations. So well followed out to be by Josh. Thank you for that. So that wraps up the sports tech and analytics for the Sweet 16. Thank you so much, Kyle, Andre, and Deanna, for that great responses and analysis. Quite entertaining. Thank you, and we'll see you next round.